a masterpiece? Objectively speaking, a masterpiece? No. Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of TBR Takedown. I'm going to start by saying I'm sorry for the lights, just that today has been extremely gloomy all day, and now it's also getting late, and I'm tired to start filming this intro very late. But in this episode, we're going to be reading only physical books for a while. We're going to read some of the physical books on my physical TBR. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Carol, and in this channel we talk mainly about books, and we're going to start this video by reading A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the sequel to A Court of Thorns and Roses. I always heard great things about this book, that the first book wasn't the best, but the second book was great. It has high ratings on Goodreads. And also, I am in the middle of a lot of series, and not going to lie, it started to get kind of overwhelming for me to look at my series tracker, because there are so many books so many series I'm in the middle of, and there are so many series that I either have to finish the last book on the series, or I have to read, I'm still only write the first book on the series, which was the case of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I want to make progress in some of the series on my series tracker. I want to continue reading more series, and A Court of Mist and Fury is one of the series that I have been most excited to read recently. There are many series I want to continue. I'm excited about continue reading, but A Court of Mist and Fury was one that was just calling out to me. I'm 96 pages into reading this book. This book is just so fun so far. Tamlin, giving even more explicit red flag vibes. Hey Tamlin. Then we have a new character called Yante. I'm going to call her Yante because Portuguese is my first language, and in Portuguese you would call her Yante, and it's a fantasy book. If you know how to exactly pronounce her name, please tell me in the comment section, but in my head I'm calling her Yante. I don't trust her at all. Lucian. Go Lucian, he's now one of my favorite characters, and we are only 96 pages into reading this book. Go Lucian, and he deserves so much better because Tamlin... What else can I say about Tamlin? Except that I hate him. And then we have already saw Reese again. He's like a bucket of charisma, which is weird to say about a character, but he's so charismatic, and I like him even more than I liked him in the first book, because he was talking something to Farah and completely agree with him, like, girl, if you like Prince Charming with extensions, that's your problem. But also, like, why are you letting him treat you this way? Because Tamlin, even more explicit red flags, he's such a prick. He's all like, oh, but that's how we always did it. And like, sir, please evolve. Hello, so it's been a few days. I did finish reading A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and as the ratings on Goodreads would suggest, and as of what I heard about this book, definitely A Court of Mist and Fury, it's miles, it's kilometers, it's like a whole world better than A Court of Thorns and Roses, because this book, it was just so much fun. Was it a masterpiece? Objectively speaking, a masterpiece? No. Was it a masterpiece for me? For me, it was a masterpiece because I had so much fun reading this book. I knew it was popular. I wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I did, because honestly, I couldn't put this book down. On the moments where I put this book down, I was thinking, oh my god, I want to go back to reading this book, and I want to go back to reading the story. And this book is not short. I think it's 600 and something pages. How long is it? 624 pages long is this book. I read it quite fast, if you consider this book is 624 pages long, and I had a lot of fun reading this book. I'm going to stop rambling because truly, A Court of Mist and Fury for me, it's a 5 stars. I love this book. I had so much fun reading this book. I can't wait to read the next book in the series. I'm going to give myself a few days before I start reading the next book, or maybe even a little bit more time, just because I know myself. If I go into this book, the other book right now, into a court of Rings and Wing, I think it's the name of the third book in TBR series. If I go into that book right now, I will start reading it, and then halfway through it, I will probably feel kind of tired, not as engaged with the story. So I want to give a breathing time, some time to just after reading this book, so I can then pick the next book in the series, excited and wanting to read, so I can have the best experience possible reading the next book, because I have high hopes. I know that a lot of people say this is the best book in the series, so I'm not expecting A Court of Wings and Ruin to be better than A Court of Mist and Fury. On the contrary, I'm expecting it to be not as good as this one. Not necessarily a bad book, but not as good as this one, just because this one was so much fun, and truly I don't know how Sarah J. Maas could top this book. Maybe she can, because I know it has already been announced by the time I filmed this video, the 6th and the 7th book on the series, which I'm still on book 2 of the series. I'm so excited for book 6 and book 7, and I can't believe that they are going to be released so close together, because I believe book 6 is on October 2026 and book 7 on January 2027. Can't wait for the pre-orders to open, so because I have a feeling if I reach the last book on the series before October, I will probably be pre-ordering the book, because it has been a long time since I have been so hyper fixated on a series, and I felt this way about series where I want to binge read it, I want to read it and finish it soon, as I have been with this book, because A Court of Mist and Fury, it was awesome. Rhysand, amazing character, understand the hype surrounding Rhysand. I also understand the criticism surrounding Rhysand, but also I do understand the character and why he was doing the things in the book. Not that it necessarily makes it right, but I do understand the character. And just, also, the way this book ended, the plot twist, the cliffhanger. I'm so glad I already have the next book in the series. I'm curious about it. But I'm going to stop rambling. A Court of Mist and Fury, it's a 5 stars. Definitely, if you read the first book in the series, if you read A Court of Thorns and Roses, even if it was many years ago, and you thought it wasn't as fun as you were expecting, if there isn't anything you absolutely hate and despise about that first book, I do recommend picking up the second book in the series, because it blew me away. It truly is so much better, and it truly, in my opinion, deserves the hype. It was just such a fun book. I had a lot of fun reading this book, so I'm going to stop rambling about Court of Mist and Fury. Then after I finish A Court of Mist and Fury, which was a 5 stars for me, I wanted to read something different, because I knew that if I ran into something that was fantasy or sci-fi, or I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much, just because I just read a book with fantastical elements and I had so much fun reading it, that I knew that if I went and started reading a book with any of these genres or any of these elements, I probably wouldn't live up with the same hype, wouldn't live up with my experience, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. I also wanted something that was not as dark, because at moments A Court of Mist and Fury could get kind of dark because of some of the things the characters experience that go from a toxic, abusive relationship to SA. I wanted to read something that was a little bit lighter, and I finished reading A Court of Mist and Fury yesterday, very late at night, and then I got up, I was looking at my physical TBR, and I was looking for quite some time, because I truly had no idea what I wanted to read, because what could I read after reading such a good book, a book I enjoyed so much and that would fit the things I was looking for in a book. But then I ended up settling for Canadian Boyfriend by Jenny Holiday. This is a book I haven't really heard much things about. I haven't actually heard any reviews about this book. I saw it on Amazon one day, randomly. I don't remember what I was doing there, what I was looking for, but I just saw this book. I remember seeing this book, reading the premise, and thinking, oh, this might be interesting. And then this book has been sitting on my TBR for a year and a half right now. In Canadian Boyfriend, this is a romance where we follow Robbie or Aurora and Mike, When she was 16, Aurora met this young man, while she was at the mall. She felt like some sparks going on between them. She kind of had a crush on him. And the thing about Aurora or Rory is that when she was in high school, she was quite awkward because she was studying to be a ballerina, so her life basically surrounded her whole life was ballet, and she lost a lot of experiences in high school and growing up because of ballet, and she gave up a lot of things in her life because of ballet. But also felt very awkward. She felt like she didn't fit in high school and with the people that she was studying with. She felt like people kind of side-eyed her a little bit because they always thought, oh, her life's ballet, she's missing out this experience because of ballet, or she's not as interesting. She kind of felt kind of altered in her high school, like she felt like she wasn't cool and just awkward in general. And she put in her mind that if she had a boyfriend, she could use it as an excuse to say, oh, I'm not going to this event because I'm with my boyfriend, or this event with my boyfriend. Or maybe people will start thinking I feel less awkward because if I'm eating alone in the cafeteria during lunch, people won't think like I'm awkward or that I'm weird or like that I'm not as good as other people. Kind of this vibe. If I say like, oh, I'm writing a letter to my boyfriend, people will think, oh, so there is nothing wrong with this person. So she meets this man who she learns is Canadian. He's there for a hockey tournament. And she says, you know what? I'm going to use this man I just met as the archetype for my Canadian boyfriend. Because she lives in Minnesota, which is right on the border between the United States and Canada. And he lives in a province that it isn't that far, I believe, from where she lived. So she started using this man that she met once as like the metaphorical archetype for her Canadian boyfriend. So whenever people would question her about her life, she could always say, you know, I'm visiting my boyfriend in Canada. I can go there because my boyfriend in Canada suffered this accident while playing hockey or something like that. She was basically using this person as an excuse when she was 16 years old. This meant that she had a crush once. Now, 13 years later, Rory became a ballet teacher. She has this ballet studio, just this dance studio, and she has this one specific student that she really loves. She's called Olivia. Her mother recently passed away in a tragic car accident, and Olivia is coming back. Olivia spent months out of class, not going to class because of what happened and what was going on with her family. But now Olivia is coming back to the dance studio, and because Olivia's former primary parent, the primary caretaker, was her mother, but now the primary caretaker is her father, who is also dealing with a lot of grief because his wife just recently passed away, and he went from having his partner that was taking care of his child to essentially being the primary caretaker and kind of, in some ways, the only caretaker, a single parent to this child. And Olivia is coming back to class, and now people are talking about how her father is actually this hockey player, because this book takes place in Minnesota, so he's this hockey player in Minnesota, and he will be taking her to class now. He's bringing her back to class and bringing the child back to like her regular life, going back to school, going back to dance class. And the mothers are all like, ooh, I wonder who the hot parent is, because they also say he's really hot. So the mothers are all like speculating about Olivia's parent, Olivia's father, and Rory is kind of like dismissive. And then when Olivia walks into the studio, guess who is Olivia's father? If not Mike, the boy Rory had a crush on when she was a teenager and that she met once at the mall, and then she made him into her archetype for her Canadian boyfriend. well, it's the same guy, except that now she found out that he wasn't as young as she thought he was when she first met him. So he's a little bit older than her, and also he has no idea who she is. He has no idea she had this crush on him, or that she was using him as her like Canadian boyfriend archetype, because they met once, they talked once, and many years ago. But now she's like, oh, so my Canadian boyfriend just walked into my dance studio, and he's the single parent, the father to my favorite student. Interesting. And I'm currently only on chapter 2. The book starts with the prologue, where in the prologue we kind of learn a little bit about how these characters met, how Rory was feeling at the time, and then we have chapter 1, where it's 13 years later. Rory is dealing with this. Is when she figures out who her favorite student's father is, and she's kind of reading a little bit about him on Wikipedia, because now she wants to know, like, who is this guy? Who is the guy she had a crush on? The guy she made the archetype for her Canadian boyfriend that she now need to be dealing with constantly. And according to the back of the book, they will strike some kind of friendship, and she probably the fact that she used him as her Canadian boyfriend might do something to them, like not be great for their friendship or something like that. I don't know. I'm literally on chapter 1, but like on chapter 1, this book is not. I'm not like it didn't blow me away. It's really fine. It's good, but it didn't blow me away. But I'm also curious about what will happen in the next, not the end, but what will happen throughout the book, because at the front there is a quote from Abby Jimenez saying this is a heartwarming, healing rom-com. And while so far from the moment I'm filming this clip, I only read 2 of Abby Jimenez's work. I read Part of Her Road, which was a book that I really liked from a more like from an objective standpoint. I think the work Abby Jimenez did on that book was great. It was just a book that didn't personally work that well for me. I remember giving it 3.5 stars like 2 years ago, and I read The Forest by Abby Jimenez, which was a novella, and I enjoyed that one. Also from an objective standpoint, I liked it. So I'm curious about what will happen next in this book, because if Abby Jimenez is saying, oh, this is a good book, even though I'm not necessarily a big Abby Jimenez fan, because I trust Abby Jimenez if she's telling me it is a good book. Also, the book, like on the chapter, I'm not going to show you, but the chapters, they have names, which is something I think more books should do. Let's stop with just chapter 2. Let's go back to adding names to the chapter. So like chapter 2 is called Depression Car. So I already have an idea what will happen, and considering what is going on with our male main character, and I'm curious about what will happen, because also so far some of the things these characters they deal with are kind of dark. Like Mike is literally dealing with the fact that his wife passed away in a tragic car accident, and now he's the sole parent for his child, and he will need to be he went from this one life to now being a single parent, where he will need to deal his career with his child, with grief, and like basically changing his whole life while dealing with something very difficult. And Rory also has dealt with some very difficult things in the past. At the beginning of the book, there is a content warning, because apparently Rory dealt with an eating disorder, probably because of ballet. And I'm just curious to continue reading this book and see where it will lead. Hello, I'm going to try and do this check-in the fastest possible, because definitely the sun is setting, we are losing light, we are losing natural light, so it's kind of dark. But it's been many days later. Also, let's ignore the second head in my face, because I didn't really have pimples as a teenager, but somehow right now my face decided to sprout a second head. suddenly. Like, this is definitely, if not the biggest, the top 5 biggest pimples I ever had in my life. But let's ignore the appearance part of this clip, but let's talk about the book, because I am a little bit over halfway to reading Canadian Boyfriend, so like 6% reading Canadian Boyfriend. So I have some thoughts. The first one is that this book feels very meh. There isn't anything about the book that I'm particularly loving, but also there isn't anything that I'm particularly hating. There are multiple different things, parts of this book that I don't like, but it's not like I hate them. These characters, there are multiple moments where both the characters, they will give me minor icks. Nothing major, nothing that will give me like a major ick, wow, I don't like these characters, but there are moments where it just gives me like minor icks, and it's stopping me from loving the book. Also, the pacing I think could be a little bit better. The romance, for most of the book I wasn't buying it. Now it's changing a little bit and I'm buying it a little bit more, but overall I'm not buying that much of the romance, at least for majority of the book so far. Also, like, there's nothing I'm loving about the book, but also there's nothing I'm hating it. It's very meh. Also, I have a suspicion about what will be the third act conflict, which, if it is what I'm thinking, it's a very obvious third act conflict, and I don't know how I will feel about it, how I feel about third act conflict, because if it goes like I'm thinking it will, I'm going to be pissed, because why? I don't know. We are still not in the third act conflict, but I kind of want to read the last page of this book. Actually, let's read the last page of this book together. We roomed away. That's less. Okay, so the third act conflict is definitely what I'm thinking it will be, and I don't know how I feel about it, but my battery is running out, the sun is setting, so let's go back to reading this book and see how I feel about it. Definitely how I feel overall about this book will depend on what will happen from now on, because let's see what happens in the book. Hello, so I finished reading, let me pick it up. I finished reading Canadian Boyfriend, and I'm not going to lie, I'm refilming this review because I initially filmed the review on the day that I finished reading the book, but it was like really late at night, the light was weird. I looked quite disheveled in that clip. I don't have courage to put that on the internet. Some people are cool with putting that on the internet, that's just not my vibe. But basically, at least on that clip, I filmed that because I needed to talk about this book. Because how can we say this? This book was very meh, it was very okay until the third act breakup, but before I get to that, let me just warn you that if you hate when a main character calls another character by their government name, especially when it is another one of the main characters, it is a love interest in the story, if you hate when they call them by their government name, their full government name, the whole book, don't read this book because Aurora calls the male lead Mike Martin the whole book. At the beginning it was fine because you get, oh, it's like her, that boy that she met when she was a teenager and that she kind of had a crush on, and suddenly he's in her life. So at first it was kind of endearing, but then like even after they got together, even to the end of the book, she was like, Mike Martin this, Mike Martin that, Mike Martin, Mike Martin, Mike Martin, Mike Martin, Mike Martin, Mike Martin. She's like, girl, stop calling him by his full corner name in your head. Call him by like just his first name, it's fine. But then we need to get to the third act conflict, the third act breakup in the story, because I had a feeling I knew what was going to happen because of just the premise of this book, but also I had a feeling it might annoy me. I had no idea it was going to annoy me that much. I'm pretty sure I filmed my reactions while reading it, so it would have been in the previous clip, but basically trying to calm down because I can rant about this book. I can rant about the third act breakup. But basically, Mr. Mike Martin, he had many red flags, including one where this man who was once a child, who has an 11 to 12-year-old child. At the beginning of the book, his child is 11, he's going to turn 12. He seemed like he had no idea how much work a child is. Because his late wife, she used to take care of the child because he travels a lot for work. So she used to do a lot of the work in the house, taking care of the child, taking care of the house, taking care of the dog, which understandable because he does travel a lot for work while she would stay at home. But still, this man had no idea before he got full custody of the child. He had no idea how much work a child is. And it's like, sir, you were a child once. Don't you remember how much work you were to your parents? Also, your child is full 11 years old. How come in all this time you have been living with this child, you haven't noticed how much work a child is? And it's not only like how expensive a child is, but how much work a child is in terms of taking care of the child. This is a red flag. And he had many red flags, and you can even argue, hey, he's on therapy, he's working through it because he's now figuring out, seeing the problems that he had on his marriage, the problems he had as a person, because now he no longer has his late wife to take care of it, and just let him live his life without noticing or even calling out on all his problematic behavior. Okay, fine, we can get over that, but it's the third act breakup. Because Aurora, yes, sure, she had told him before what happens, the miscommunication, the situation on the third act breakup, yes, but the way this man reacts, full on red flag. Like, sir, this could be like something you laugh about. You might be, kind of upset about it, but then this is something you can like laugh about. It's nothing major, it's kind of funny actually. And also, if this woman told her life story, she told you what happened for how her life was in the time period of her life, in like, you know how her childhood was, you know how her teenage years, her high school life was, you know how her parents. Her mother treated her. Sir. Like, this is something you could kind of be like, oh, I'm sad you have to go through, but then becomes something these characters could like laugh about, that this happened, and say, oh, this is kind of like fate or something. This man is so rude and mean, and like being a little bit upset, okay, but the way he treats her, the things he says to her, the way he reacts, it's just like, sir, you are 35 years old. This happened 13 years ago. You didn't know each other. Like, sir. Also, you know her life. You know what she's gone through. You know how she used to feel and how she still feels. Sir. Like, this is one of those moments where I read it and I think, oh, I can be the female main character in a romance novel, because no, I wouldn't have forgiven him, especially because there is essentially no groveling. The groveling is very minor at the end of the story. It's very minor. And like, sir, you're 35 years old. This happened 13 years ago. Why are you reacting like this? It's like so annoying. And it was also so annoying because this book, it wasn't something magical. The writing wasn't something I was really liking. The chemistry between the characters wasn't something that was like, wow, out of this world. The romance wasn't something I was loving it. There were minor things that annoyed me about the book, but overall it was just a very meh, middle of the road. Wasn't loving it, wasn't hating it, and then you have the third act got breakup, and it ruined the book for me. Completely ruined it. And then also the third act breakup, like the ending in general, just ruined the book for me, because it felt so rushed. I think it was in the last 40 pages, you get them finally, officially getting together, to the third act conflict, to the book ending, and then suddenly you are on the epilogue, and the epilogue's like a year later, and you're like, why? You had a little bit more pages, or maybe cut off some of the previous pages, some of the story, the previous pages, but then it just felt so rushed. Like, and the last sentence of the book, the official last sentence of the book for the epilogue, it's just atrocious. The last sentence, it is literally, then he ran around to the driver's side and we roomed away. That's how the book ends. And then you have the epilogue. The ending of this book completely ruined this book for me. And there is another book, technically like series interconnected, that follows a best friend from Aurora, the best friend in this book. And I'm not reading that because I didn't love it. And also Misabi, who has a quote on the cover of this book, you just disappointed me. And now I'm kind of want to read another book of yours, but also I'm scared. I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy another book first, because if this is the kind of book you're recommending, like, the book was not great. Like, the third act conflict, truly, that's the thing that ruined the book for me. That's the thing that ruined. Like, the cover is better than the contents inside of this book. So I ended up giving Canadian Boyfriend 2.5 stars. The 0.5 is because of the rest of the book was like meh. And I'm going to stop. Let's stop rambling about this book. Let's stop ranting about this book, because I could rant a little bit more. We're going to stop ranting. Let's put it back here. I'm putting it back here because it's my romance shelf. Oh, my keychain just fell off. But this is basically my romance shelf, and I'm putting it between Not in Love and Icebreaker, because Not in Love is pink and Icebreaker is hockey. So, keychain's back on, and yes, that's it. In terms of the next book I want to read, honestly, even on that first clip, the first clip that I just started, that I initially filmed, it was like 20 minutes long, and I spent like 10 minutes trying to choose one book, and then I couldn't choose one book. I chose a book, and then I look at it and I'm like, I don't want to read this book. Don't want to read this book. Don't know what I want to read, honestly. And I don't know what to do with that. Ideally, I would like to continue reading another Avatar, A Court of Wings and Ruin, because in my Avatar phase, I want to read more Avatar, continue reading the series because binge reading the series, definitely I think it's better. It's definitely something that helps with when reading series, and I like to take a little bit of break between books so I don't get tired between them. But also I just want to continue reading this book, especially considering how A Court of Wings and Fury ended. But also I don't want to make this video, the Avatar video. But also I want to continue reading the series. I want to continue reading more series because I'm in the middle of so many series that it's becoming overwhelming. And this is one of those moments where it's kind of like the moment where sometimes I feel like we need to have a chat. Because if I continue reading the book, I'm reading it for me because this is what Carol wants to read this one. But sometimes it's kind of difficult when you are reading for a vlog because I'm doing this as a hobby. This is not my job, at least right now it's not my job. So I'm reading this as a hobby, and sometimes how do you choose between reading for yourself and reading for a vlog? Because sometimes there are two different things. There are times where I really like vlogging. It's a hobby I really enjoy having and I have fun. I like going back and seeing my opinions about the books, seeing what I thought about the books, but sometimes I just want to read something for me where I don't talk about it. And sometimes I just want to read a book and it doesn't fit the vlog. But I'm going to think about it. I might start reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, but you need to wait until the next clip when we are going to talk about the next book in this vlog, because truly I don't know what I want to read. I'm in the mood to continue reading series because I'm in the middle of so many series and I'm starting to feel overwhelmed because for most series I'm in their last book of the series or first book of the series. But also I for some reason I'm in a phase where I just want to read fantasy and sci-fi. Why? I don't know. But I'm in the mood to read fantasy and sci-fi. So you're going to figure out what I'm going to be reading next in the next clip. Hello, so it's been a few days and I'm a little bit over halfway through reading A Court of Silver Flames, which I just realized my copy is without the touch jacket, but just check it, it's just right here, so we can kind of pretend, put it back on the pages. How do we do this? It's going to be like this because it's too complicated to do it right now. But I'm a little bit over halfway to reading A Court of Wings and Ruins because honestly, from all of the physical books that I currently have on my physical TBR, the one I truly wanted to read the most was this one. I did read a few books in between A Court of Mist and Fury. I read Canadian Boyfriend, as I said in the previous clip, and then I read another book for another video. So I feel like it was just on the perfect moment to read this book because I'm really into this series. I really want to continue reading the series, and I'm glad that I started reading it because I just stopped in a really good scene. I'm stopped right before the meeting. If you read it, you know, but I'm on page 402 of this book because this book is quite long. This book is 699 pages, at least this edition that I have, which is the Canadian/American hardcover of the book. I can't tell you much about the plot of this book. It starts a few weeks after how things ended in A Court of Mist and Fury, and basically I'm really enjoying it. I don't know what I'll say. I'm just really enjoying it. I started reading a few days ago and I read over 100 pages in one sitting, and I didn't realize I read over 100 pages in one sitting until I accidentally looked at the clock and I was like, how long have I been reading? And then I looked at the page where I was at, and I read over 100 pages of this book without noticing. And then on the next day I read over 200 pages of this book without noticing. And every time I pick up this book I can easily read over 100 pages and not notice how many pages I'm reading, because I'm not even noticing what is the page number I'm at. I'm just flipping the page, just flip the page. And then suddenly I look down at the page count and I'm like, wow, I read a lot. Because also I struggle to put it down because I finish a chapter and I'm like, just another chapter, one more chapter. And then suddenly it's been 10 chapters. Because honestly, so much fun. Is it as good as A Court of Mist and Fury? No, but I don't think any book, any romantic can be as good as A Court of Mist and Fury. If you have recommendations, please let me know in the comment section, because I'm in my romantasy era apparently, so I'm in my fantasy era apparently. So if you have any recommendations for a good romantasy that might give similar vibes, or is, in your opinion, it's as good or as close to A Court of Mist and Fury in terms of entertainment levels, please let me know in the comment section, because I'm over halfway through reading A Court of Wings and Ring and I can't put it down. I struggle to put it down. Hi, hello. So I actually already finished reading A Court of Rings and Ring by Sarah J. Maas, and I'm gonna be honest, this book is quite long. It's exactly 699 pages long. This version that I have, which is the hardcover from the Canadian/American edition of the book. So it's quite a long book, and it took me a few days to finish reading this book. But I finished, and honestly, I really liked it. I'm going to be giving it a 5 stars, because I'm not going to overthink it, because there are things about the book that wasn't my favorite, because this book definitely isn't as good as the second book in the series, but I don't think any other book in the series could be as good as A Court of Mist and Fury, and maybe, I don't know, there's a chance, but it's a very slim chance for any other book in the series to be as good as the second book in the series. But I really enjoyed reading A Court of Wings and Ring, and every time I picked it up, I didn't notice time passing. I didn't notice how many pages I was reading. I remember the first day I started reading this book, I read over 100 pages, and I literally didn't notice I read over 100 pages until I accidentally glanced at the page count. And I was like, wow, I've been reading this book for quite some time now and I didn't even realize. And then the next day, I ended up reading like 200 pages without realizing I read 200 pages in one sitting. And I was like, wow, this book is really holding my attention. And overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. One unpopular opinion that I definitely have is that I actually really enjoy Nesta. Nesta is one of my favorite characters, and I know this might be an unpopular opinion because I see online people talking a lot of not being nice to Nesta and saying bad things about Nesta. Also, I have other theories, but I'm not going to talk about them because that might spoil the book, but I think there is one character that he keeps portraying as if he's like mean and evil. I think he's actually a good person, and he's actually way better, and he's just kind of hiding himself and his personality and who he really is in order to protect the people that he loves and in order to protect him, but especially someone very specific that they love. I liked meeting the other High Lords, and the High Lord meeting it could be a reality show. I still hate Tamlin. There wasn't necessarily the worst person ever the whole book, but still hate Tamlin, and this book just made me like, again, even though there is something that he does that it isn't necessarily the worst thing ever, still hate Tamlin. Still one of my least favorite characters in this book. But I really enjoyed this book. Definitely, also, it was quite surprising because this book, there is a war, and I'm a person that I don't like reading about wars. Again, I read War and Peace. I think I said this like multiple times throughout videos. I read War and Peace, and one of the reasons why I have a really love-hate relationship with the book is that I really like the more technical side of the story, but it's too much war. And I think it was reading that book that I just realized I really don't like reading about war, and this book there is a war going on, and well, the war wasn't my favorite scene. I also didn't hate it, especially because of one of the characters and something that happens in the war. And yes, I'm excited to continue reading the series because as of the time I'm filming this video, I only have 2 other books to read until I can catch up to where this series has been published so far. I have A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is right here, and then I have A Court of Silver Flames, which is somewhere in the back of this pile because it's a hardcover and it's big, so it's somewhere in the back, and I need to pick it up and put it up front so I can make it kind of a priority. But in terms of when I'm going to read them, honestly, I don't know. Am I excited to read them? Yes, because if you let me, I will ramble on about these books and I want to binge read it, but I said it again when I was talking about The Court of Mr. Fury. I know myself. I have a feeling if I read 2 books, I might be a little bit fed up with the world. I think I need to take a little bit, breathe in a little bit, take a pause from the series. I know I said that about The Court of Mr. Fury and I immediately started reading this book, but now that we closed the first trilogy, the first main story, the main couple, I think it's a good point to like just sit down, wait a few weeks, and then in a few weeks, by the time I'm filming this, I might pick up the A Court of Frost and Starlight, even because like it's a very short book. It's not a long book at all. But yes, in terms of A Court of Insane Ring, I really enjoyed it. I also now I understand the cover. It's really nice when you can look at the cover and you can be like, oh, now I understand why the cover looks like this. And now I do. And again, really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 5 stars.